Well, greetings and welcome back to our study on 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Today we are finishing up 1st Thessalonians with 1st Thessalonians 5. Paul is continuing the theme of Jesus' return and what that means to the Thessalonian church. If you remember in the last video, we talked about the rapture and how Paul isn't writing about a rapture. He's writing about Jesus' second return, or Jesus' return to earth, and how Jesus is coming to set up a kingdom here, not to take everybody away to heaven, as some people like to talk about. Now, in this passage, in the opening section of 1 Thessalonians 5, Paul talks about Jesus coming will be like a thief in the night. And this famously inspired a movie in the 1980s that was based all on fear and how people or making people afraid of Jesus's return. The idea was that you are not prepared, you need to be prepared, or else you're just going to be left behind. To use another famous series based off of this idea. And the idea is, if you are not perfectly right with God, then Jesus is just going to forget about you and your life is going to be miserable and you are going to go to hell. And this was all about fear tactics to create anxiety in people and prey on their anxieties about Jesus's return. But that is the antithesis of what Paul is doing here. Paul does not want the Thessalonian community to be afraid. Paul does not really want anybody to be afraid. He is talking to them about how they have hope in Jesus and not fear. If we go down to verse 4, Paul says to the Thessalonian community, this event is not going to catch you like a thief because you live in the light. Now, he is going to mix several metaphors here. Paul is really good at mixing metaphors. So you kind of have to listen to one, understand it, and then move on to the next one and understand what he's talking about there, and not try to put them all together. He's trying to keep them separate. So the idea of Jesus' coming won't surprise you, won't be like a thief, because what he's trying to say is not that it won't be surprising, not that we will know when it'll happen. I mean, so many would-be prophets try to use the Bible to create a date and a time about when Jesus will return. Every year in September at the Jewish New Year, I see different prophecies from people about Jesus is going to return this year. You better get ready. Jesus is going to return. And guess what? None of them have come true yet. There are a lot of prophecies. There were a lot around the year 2000. There were a lot around the year 1000. They just don't happen. Because this is not what Jesus is planning, and understanding this passage is a lot different from how these would-be prophets want us to understand the passage. They want to say that Jesus has given us a roadmap to his return, and that is not what Paul is trying to say. Paul is saying it's not going to be like a thief in the night. It's going to, because you are in the light, this is going to be something that you kind of understand and you see the person as they are coming. Not that you know when they're going to come, because you don't know when Jesus is going to come. And the concept is not that you know when the thief is going to come, but you'll see the event unfolding and it won't be particularly scary. And a thief walking up to you in broad daylight is not the same level of fear. That's what he's trying to convey. We are children of the daylight. We are not part of the darkness. We are not part of the night. Therefore, we aren't going to be scared at this coming. We are going to see it as it happens for what it is. And that's a good thing. Then he kind of changes his metaphor. So then let's not sleep. Don't sleep. Don't go to sleep. Don't be drunk. These are metaphors that Paul uses about vigilance. Not vigilance in the sense of we are always watching for Jesus's return. That's not what he's talking about. We are not trying to be hyper fixated on Jesus's return. That the idea is about putting on our hope and preparing ourselves in the world. The idea is faithfulness, love, and hope. This is the first time Paul uses these three together, this faith, hope, and love. The idea is that we want to be working the way Jesus wants us to work, the way he used that metaphor in the parable where the owner or the master returns and finds the servants are working and doing what they're supposed to be doing and is happy with them, and that they are not idle and indifferent to his return. The idea is not that we know when Jesus is coming, but that because we have this hope that Jesus is, this concrete knowledge that Jesus is coming back, we have a love for one another, and we are faithful to our calling. We need to remain faithful to our calling, trusting in this hope that Jesus will return, so that when he does return, whenever that might be, we understand, or he will find us to have been faithful, and we understand that this is a good thing. This is what Paul wants us to see. It's not that we know, it's that we don't care. We're not concerned with that. We are concerned with doing what Jesus has told us to do in the meantime. And then he goes on, we're not going to suffer God's wrath. God's wrath in the Old Testament is not about being mean to people. God's wrath in the Old Testament is about eradicating sin and wickedness. Yes, we understand that people are going to be caught up in this. Yes, we understand that there's going to be some level of grief, but the idea of God's wrath is not about God being mad at people. It is God providing justice where there is injustice. It is about God righting wrongs. It is about God coming into the world in a new and glorious way to bring wholeness and peace. This is always meant to be seen as a good thing. It is not meant to be fear-mongering or scare us. This is meant to provide hope to the Thessalonians. If you are reading this in a way that is causing you fear or anxiety, you're reading it wrong. The idea is that if I am committed to God and trying to work through all of the things that lead to wickedness and unrighteousness in my life, then there is nothing to fear. Not that I have to do everything right, but that I have to be committed to God and trying to work through all of the things that make me afraid, that make me do wrong, that make me a person who breaks down God's system instead of building it up. The idea is not that we should be afraid, but to recognize we are those people. We are committed to God, and we are doing our level best to be like God. And as we do that, we live for Jesus, and we don't have to fear the wrath, because the wrath is not about taking out people. It is about taking out evil and injustice, the very thing that we pray for all the time. We want God to remove the evil from us. We want God to remove the sin from us. We want God to remove the hurt, the grief, the guilt. And this is God coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to do that because I hate this more than you do. And that is a wonderful, wonderful message for us. And now we get to the last section of this, where Paul says, lift up the people who work among you. In other words, all those leaders that you have who are doing great things for you, lift them up, build them up, encourage them, support them. Do not be critical of them. This is a message for us that we are to look at people who are in positions of leadership in a way that gives them motivation, not gives them the benefit of the doubt and wrongs, gives them motivation to live out the calling that Jesus has on their lives. The idea is we give people around us motivation. Even what Paul says next, admonish the weak, or admonish the lazy, the idle. Promote the weak. Be at peace with one another. All these things are about building up people, not nitpicking, not finding fault, not hammering on other people, but to try to lift them up in a way that is beneficial to them, motivating to them, that is helpful to them to get to where they need to be. If they are not living up to the ideal, motivate. Don't come down like a hammer. Motivate them. Reach out to them. See them as weak, not as evil. See them as people who need your strength, not as evil. See them as people who need your love, not as evil. Do not repay a wrong for a wrong. People are going to hurt you. People are going to despise you. People are going to do all sorts of things that you don't like. Don't repay that wrong with a wrong. Don't turn around. Instead, this is building off of Jesus' idea of turn the other cheek. When you are wronged, if you need to, take it to the community. Let them decide the wrong. Let them help sort out the injustice. But do not return a wrong for a wrong. Do not return injustice for injustice. Instead, bring healing and hope and bring wholeness to the situation. Rejoice always. In other words, there's going to be tough times, but always try to remember the good things in life. Always try to see the bright side, even when it's hard. Try to rejoice. Rejoice in God. That does not mean that we have to put on a false sense that everything is always right, that everything is always good, that there is no bad in the world, nothing that causes us grief or suffering, but just always try to rejoice. Pray continually. Pray without ceasing. The idea is always try to be connecting to God. Not that we have to 24/7 be mumbling out prayers. Although I've known a lot of people who have benefited greatly from repeating a prayer again and again throughout the day. They find connection to God. That we should be trying to connect to God in everything we do. Kind of the idea is that be present with God in every moment. Give thanks to God. As much as you can, give thanks to God for the good things. Again, don't let your focus always be on the bad in the world or the bad things that happen, but give life to yourself by reminding yourself of the blessings that God gives. Don't quench the Spirit. In other words, the spiritual gifts that come in you. Paul uses this in Galatians, where he says, the fruit of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Don't quench those things in you. Those things that the Spirit brings, don't quench that. Don't quench that fire. Always allow yourself to be loving and kind and joyous. Always allow yourself to be patient with others. Control yourself as best you can. Don't brush off when people hear from the Spirit. Instead, let them know that that's an inspiring message. Examine everything, though, and hang on to the good. Don't just accept everything, but use some wisdom. Avoid evil and cling to the good. Not every message is going to be good. And then lastly, he gives them a benediction that he hopes that God will bless them and keep them. He wants them to have everything that's good. Then he says, lastly, pray for one another. Greet each other with a holy kiss. Now, I know some churches take this very literally, but what he's trying to say here is treat each other like family. Treat each other like family in a way that they show love, that you can show them love and kindness. Be affectionate towards one another. Be the kind of generous, loving family that you want in your life. and then um, that he wants them to read the letter in the community and to greet one another, because that is his worry, that people in the church would be connected, that they would know what's going on, and that the message of Jesus would bring us together as one holy family. So I hope you've enjoyed 1 Thessalonians. Next time I will be back with 2 Thessalonians, or at least the start of it. As always, if you have questions or comments that you want to talk about, please do not hesitate to send me a message and let me know what you think. I would love to interact with you on this and see how you are learning about God's Word.